evening. Welcome to the Danvers Conservation Commission March 28th meeting. We operate under the Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection Act, and Chapter 26 of the Town of Danvers General Bylaw, the Wetlands Protection Bylaw. After the applicant presents his or her request and the board has had time to ask questions and discuss the project, we will accept questions from the audience. Because this is a public meeting, it is required by law that you give your name and address first. Although we may disagree on the issues raised, all persons present during this meeting are expected to be civil to all other meeting attendees. This includes the members of the commission, staff, abutters, concerned citizens, and property owners and project applicants. We're going to juggle the agenda slightly tonight and start with the 6 Cherry Hill Drive, an emergency certificate request. Are you here to represent the
Yes.
applicant?
So come on up to the commission and then explain your situation and your certificate request.
My name's David Full. I am the facilities manager for Access New England. Currently I live at 64 Roosevelt Road in Medford. We are requesting permission to remove a few trees that are, I guess, in wetlands. One is already fallen and is on our property, like the grass, not in the wetlands. Another tree is against our building, literally up against a window. It's so large that it can't be moved by one person. And then there's another tree, even larger, that the beavers have started gnawing at, and that one's probably the next one to fall. Those are the 3 main trees we would like to remove. There are also some fallen trees that are in the wetlands that we would also like to remove in hopes to discourage the beavers from building a larger habitat there, possibly dropping more trees.
So we've also discussed with the applicant the possibility of caging the larger trees as well. That's standard deterrent and procedure, I know with DCR and other state parks and other towns. And again, that's a small gauged wire kind of thing. It's hard to see, but it's basically wrapped around the base of the tree, about 4 feet tall, and that discourages beavers from continuing to gnaw at trees. So we've talked to the property owner about protecting the additional larger trees that are on the property in anticipation that there will continue to be beaver activity in the area. So the request is an emergency certification, which is really issued by the commissions to protect public health and safety with activities that have actually damaged property, not necessarily in anticipation of property damage. So that's something for the commission to consider.
Better details of it. It's a grove of trees, I think originally probably about 30, roughly 1 foot in diameter, and it's in a small area right up close to the building. So any one of them could hit the building. And our building just has a small row of windows, but they happen to be right there where the trees are.
One tree fall on the building?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, one tree is still leaning against the building, and the branches are up against the window. We're kind of surprised it didn't break the window. There is damage to the roof flashing due to the size of the tree. So far, we don't have any roof leaks.
How far from the building is the wetlands boundary?
There's probably a strip of grass that the landscapers use, and also there's also wells back there that there's another group that monitors, I guess, a DEP site that's close by. So we keep that area mowed. It's probably, I would say, 6 to 7 feet from the building to the edge of the wetlands would be our grass. And then the wetlands, I would say, about 10 or 12 feet going from there in is where the shrubs, the trees, the thicket, and then you're in the water. So these trees are right along the water.
Is there must be a beaver dam there now, is there a pond?
We know there's definitely beavers doing this.
Yeah, I
They've
can
been
see by
going
the-
from tree to tree. I believe the beavers are on the other side of the road, and that because there's a much larger area, I haven't gone back there to see if, you know, one of their huts or their dens or somewhere, but I know on our side, there's a number of us, including myself, that walk through the paths that the farmland next to us allows. And that whole area is just a stream. It's not really a wetlands area, except right about where it gets to the road, it's, you know, starting to get marshy, but from our property to the parking lot on the other side is probably only about 40 or 50 feet. So,
On the other side of the road?
no, actually, our neighbor.
Okay, so on the
So
same
it-
side. Access is on the left, right, as you come in?
Yeah, as you come in on the Danvers side, access is on the left. I believe the beavers are coming from the other side of the road, on the right-hand side. But it looks like they're trying to dam up the culvert. And so that was one of my concerns as to, you know, are they gonna flood the area, kind of thing. I'm all for protecting the beavers, and we're just gonna monitor that particular aspect. And for the time being, we would just, you know, request to remove the trees that present a danger and the ones that have already fallen.
So your request is to remove 3 trees. 2 have fallen, 1 is really badly damaged.
Right.
And then also your request is to remove 2 trees that have fallen into the wetland area
Yes.
because of potential damming of the water, anticipation of that. And your removal, so I had a chance to go on site today, and the anticipated removal by the tree company is by crane, and the truck and crane will be parked on the road, which has a culvert underneath it, and the crane will be able to use its arm over the wetland area to be able to remove the trees rather than hauling trees out of the wetland and doing further damage to any soils
Yeah,
or any other
We don't
vegetation.
suspect there'll be very much disruption to the existing environment.
So, my recommendation to the commission is to approve the emergency certification for the removal of 3 trees and to also remove those 2 trees that have fallen as a result of beaver activity in the wetland because of the damage to this building as a result of those trees falling. And also installing a cylindrical gauge wire mesh.
So they need our permission to do that
And
in the wetlands?
they need your permission to do that in the wetlands, and because the trees have fallen on property, in particular, this emergency certification can be used to allow for really quick action. So they could be out there, if you approve this, they can be out there tomorrow to remove the tree off their building.
Yeah. After the first tree dropped and missed our building, that's when we went out, took a look, noticed the beaver activity had already started on the second tree. We thought we had time, but within 2 weeks, they dropped that second one. I'm sure the wind last week had something to do with it, but this third one that they started on is actually bigger than the other 2, and it's leaning towards our building. So, we're probably thinking it's gonna probably fall within the next couple weeks, 'cause they seem to be very busy.
It's that time of year.
Come out and take care of it. How soon can the tree removal company come
I
out?
believe as soon as we get
It's
approval.
ready.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Chicora Tree is gonna do it. They're in the park on the other side. They were there at the meeting today, plus they've been there before to take a look, so. We're anticipating as soon as the go-ahead, within a couple of business days, to be on this. So.
Are they gonna put up the caging too?
We haven't discussed that. The tree company has never done that before. So we'll probably talk to the tree company. We'll also have to do some research to where we can get this caging material and possibly a company that is.
Install it.
Who owns the property? Is it the industrial park or is it the farm
It's in the
behind it?
industrial
Yeah.
park. It's weird because I think the company is 6 Cherry Hill Drive LLC is the name of the property. And then there's Access New England, but it's actually Todd Clark and Associates. But now, a month ago, we were purchased by GPC Corporation, which is a large corporation. So we're in chaos right now.
I just wonder who would be responsible for these cages?
Yeah, so the
Probably
prop,
be me as
either,
facility manager.
yeah, it's up to the commission to talk about that. So it could,
Because it would be
Clearly,
on
you know,
conservation
once-
land, right? Basically, like within the,
it'd be on private land
Okay.
in jurisdictional area.
There is some conservation land up there though, isn't there?
Proctor Farm on the backside,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
other side.
I
Yes.
mean,
When they
we've,
got
when we moved there 13 years ago, we actually had the building built. It's about 13 years old. And we keep a right-of-way that was made probably by a Boy Scout Eagle project.
Yep.
And every once in a while, that sign gets knocked over by wind or whatever, so I put that back up. We have the landscapers make sure that the clearing to go from the park into the Proctor Farm is still there and stuff. So we like to keep up on things like that.
Okay.
Just assume whoever we issue the emergency cert to is the one who's gonna have to maintain it. So whatever group we issue it to would be the responsible parties.
Yeah, I mean, it's in their best interest to put these cages up there, as otherwise, I mean,
Yes.
beavers are
Yeah.
very persistent, so they're just gonna, and it's probably gonna be a problem down the road if they build a dam and start flooding areas.
That's what I'm predicting.
Vanessa, do you have any other questions?
no, I don't.
I don't
Anything else?
Chelsea, you all set?
Yep.
All right, I'll entertain a motion that we grant the emergency certification so they can get these trees removed. And I'm just struggling with these cages around the trees, but I'm gonna leave that up to the landowners to decide.
Okay.
Do we spell that out? Do we give them permission to go into the wetlands to do that?
Yes. For the cages or the
Right.
tree removal?
I think you said the tree removal, they won't really have to go in.
The
other
tree
than
will,
foot
removal
traffic.
will not, there won't be any major foot traffic. There are lots of invasive species in the wetland area,
Yeah.
particularly around the two or three large trees that are on the edge. They're in the picture, but I'm sorry, the picture's dark. All these branches are actually branched off of one tree here, and they're fairly close to the building. The bases of those trees are fairly close to the building, so it won't require lots of trampling into the wetland or into the water.
Okay. Like I said, I'll entertain a motion, and we can go from there.
A second?
Someone has
Oh.
to make the
Make
motion.
Motion.
Oh, sorry, make the motion.
Make the
Oh, we have to
motion to approve.
Yeah, I make the motion, we approve to issue emergency request to access Todd Clark. And then just with the condition that those cages go up around the trees that are in so good shape.
Sure.
And be maintained by the property
Who's
owner,
receiving this?
manager, or signs.
Yep.
Perfect.
It
Okay.
doesn't say who the property owner is here. Does it? I mean, I don't
No,
see it.
it's just the performance of the work, and I can add a cover letter to the certificate.
Okay. Okay, so a motion's been made. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, good.
Thank you.
Just know that there's a particular time frame that the work has to happen within 30 days.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
And the commission will sign the bottom here.
You want to do that now?
Yep. And can someone swing by tomorrow so I can add a cover letter on the top of it?
Sure.
Thanks. It'll be ready
Any
by 10.
particular time?
It'll be ready by 10.
Okay. Do you need anything from us? Okay.
Just time to process the
Okay,
front letter,
sure.
the cover page to go with it, but you guys are good to go.
Sure. Okay.
And I will also have to submit a copy to DEP as well. And do you know the schedule of your work tomorrow or Monday?
Well, I can, tomorrow morning I'll let the tree company know.
Yeah, just give
where
me a
to go,
call and I can meet you out
then,
there.
Sure. Do you have a business card? I mean, I got
Not on
Mark's
me,
email.
sitting there. Yeah, hold on,
But
let me
that's
write it
about
up
it.
for you.
My information.
I'll give you a call tomorrow.
Okay.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Yep. You guys are good to schedule.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Have a good
Thank
evening.
you. All right, so next up is an application for, or notice of intent for 56 Adams Street, DEP file number 14-1322. Who's here to represent the applicant? And you are?
Thank you. My name is Mike Maham with the Warren Cameron Group. I'm civil engineer and project manager. So this project here is a notice of intent for there's an existing single-family dwelling on this property at 56 Adams Street. The proposed project is to tear that down, replace it with a two-family dwelling. With me here also tonight is Sean Thompson, representing 56 Adams LLC, the applicant. So just real quick, I want to walk you through the existing site, and then I have a colored up site plan that we can work through. So this site here, it's a small property, about 13,000 square feet. The existing dwelling is in this corner of the property. There's a shed in the rear. There was in fact a temporary like carport structure here. So you had a wood shed, temporary carport, and this was a concrete pad, or is a concrete pad, and was for a garage in the past. The resource area is an intermittent stream, runs along the rear of the property, down the side, goes under, and goes down toward Crane Brook. So it's an intermittent stream. Effectively, I would call it a drainage ditch. It's not a natural stream. It was man-made. They kind of forced the water in that direction. I'm sure there was a stream at some point in the past, but this is basically a drainage ditch, what we would classify, but it's technically an intermittent stream. Of course, off of that, we have a 25-foot no disturb zone, 35-foot no build, and then 100-foot buffer to the inland bank. So that's the resource. So I would say just this property right now is rather, I guess you would say, run down. Just needs some maintenance. Kind of, it's the buildings, the outbuildings. Like I said, this is a concrete pad. Used to be a garage. I would classify what's happening. It's basically storage. What you would typically store in your garage is effectively stored outside. Of course, the garage would have been there. The garage is gone, and everything is kind of stored outside. You've got, this is all within, this shed is within the 25-foot no disturb. This garage is all within, of course, the 100-foot buffer zone, getting toward the 35. The dwelling is just touching the 25-foot no disturb in this area. So this is all nice maintained, or I should say established lawn here, kind of long-standing, well-established turf. There's a couple large trees in this area, one back here. Not proposing to move any trees, any of those trees there. So
You won't be moving the trees, is that what?
Will not be, no. So that's kind of a sense of the site. Like I said, it's a single-family dwelling. So what we're proposing to do is tear down the existing building and build a duplex, basically of 2 3-bedroom dwellings. So you can see we've situated the house further away from the resource area than the existing dwelling. This shed is proposed to be removed in this area. This, of course, concrete pad, and actually this carport has actually been removed already, so it's just a concrete pad back here the carport was sitting on. But at the time of the survey, it was there, which is why we're showing 2 sheds. So when we surveyed it, that carport was there. So effectively, we have the dwelling here. We have proposed parking area. So it was important here to get the parking off the street. This is really not a street conducive to on-street parking. We've actually had at least one concerned resident that says really need to get the parking off the street. So that's the intention with adding these 3 parking spaces over here. So while it may seem like a decent amount of impervious area, it's kind of important to this a successful project here. The street is a mix of single family, multi-family, 2-family along this street. Just it's not a wide street. We really don't want to encourage street parking. So this will have 3 parking spaces over here. There'll be 1 parking space here, and then of course there'll be garage parking. So it'll basically be 3 spaces for each unit. So we've got decks in the rear, and the utilities there's going to be proposed water and sewer utilities. Of course, you can kind of see them in here, proposed manhole, and this is just designed to Danvers town standards. So the proposed roof runoff will be captured in gutters and will be conveyed to a dry well back here. It's a 700-gallon dry well. We actually have storage calculations, recharge volume storage calculations down here. So this project, being what it is not subject to stormwater management standards, either state or local. But we wanted to offer something in regards to stormwater, even though it's not subject to the regulations. Technically we don't need to meet them. But what we're offering is this dry well, which will basically capture the roof runoff. The sizing, when we sized it, is basically just using the state standard of a required recharge volume. So you're kind of trying to mimic the recharge capacity of the site. So you can see the calculations above the corner here. So basically, obviously, all the structures will be removed, like I said. The other stormwater feature is this vegetated filter strip, which will kind of the idea with this parking area, it's a pretty flat site, so everything's going to be pretty slow, sheet flow of stormwater, pretty much effectively. So a portion of this will drain into a vegetated swale that then kind of wraps around, really gentle vegetated swale. We've got infiltration through here. The soils in this area are mapped as decently drained soils, kind of an outwash material, so pretty well drained. So this should infiltrate through the swale, and as it works its way back here, it would then spread out toward sheet flow again, so it would spread out and slow down as it works its way around. This is the vegetated filter strip, which is essentially kind of a level pad and real 1% slope, and that'll slow down and filter the storm water. It'll have a sandier material in that strip, and that'll encourage infiltration. It'll encourage just slowing down the storm water. It will look like a lawn, though. It's important to us to have something that's easy to maintain. It will be maintained. It'll look and function like a lawn, but it will have that added stormwater benefit. So that whole edge of the pavement is level, 34.8. So we kind of hit that level and spread through that. Regarding the restoration we're proposing is where this existing wood shed is. So of course tearing down that shed, and then we've proposed this restoration area planted with a native conservation seed mix back in this corner. But given that this is a small lot, it's important that the lawn that's there is an established lawn. This is a small lot. We're really not willing to lose the lawn. So what we're trying to do here is, because it's established, we want to take this 25-foot no disturbance setback, install our erosion controls right along that, and not touch any of this. So keep that maintained. It's a nice stable turf. Keep that as lawn to be maintained as such. And you can kind of see the light green. I colored it like that. That's where we would not be disturbing. And then this brighter green is, we'd have the erosion control following all the way around here. Of course, we follow back behind the restoration area because of the activity happening there. This would all be restored to lawn. So that's essentially the application, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
It looks like your parking lot, the corner of the parking lot is within the 35 no-build zone?
Yes, this corner here. Yeah. Or that's the 35-foot no build setback. Correct.
Do we need to do a waiver for that?
Not a structure. I wouldn't classify that. We typically do no structures within that walls or structures.
Yeah, so it's been our interpretation pretty consistently that the no build is particularly for structures rather than impervious surface.
Okay.
That's not to say that the commission couldn't consider other options there, looking at all of the standards and impacts of the project in relation to the resource areas.
And how has the stream been determined to be an intermittent stream?
It was determined by Seacamp Environmental, so they have within the notice of intent was their delineation report. So essentially, it doesn't have the drainage area required for intermittent stream. It doesn't have the flow characteristics. I'm sorry, it doesn't have the drainage area for a perennial stream. It doesn't
Right.
have the flow characteristics of a perennial stream. So that was just delineated as.
But does it drain the pond over at Rebecca Nurse?
That's the idea, yeah, it does, yeah. But it's small, relatively small drainage area as far as that goes, and again, it doesn't have the flow characteristics. And like I said, it's more of a drainage ditch. If you there's the large parking lot from the huge kind of commercial 75 Sylvan property here, so, it's getting runoff from various directions, kind of really just a drainage ditch that was man-made back in the day. It's doing all right. I mean, it's got a rocky bottom. It's not really eroding, but it's,
So there was a project across the street that we had to rule on.
at the same kind of culvert location there.
Mm-hmm. I think it's pretty much directly across the street. You remember that one, Chelsea? That was maybe 2 years or so ago.
Was I on the commission 2 years ago?
I think you were.
I don't
That was
remember
with Georgia. We were over there.
Okay.
And
Not ringing
Jean.
any bells though.
Do you know the square footage of that little corner of the parking that's within the 35-foot setback?
I couldn't get you a number. By 15 divided by 2, so you're looking at right around 20 square feet.
Okay.
And the increase in impervious doesn't trip anything as far as.
Yeah, so let's take a quick look. The critical area here is an inland bank, correct? So the performance standards are that the work shall not impair any of the following: the physical stability of the bank, the water carrying capacity and existing channel within the bank, the groundwater or surface water quality, the capacity of the bank to provide breeding habitat, escape cover, and food for fisheries, and the capacity for the bank to provide important wildlife habitat functions. So those are the 5 performance standards that the commission needs to weigh in relation to the increased impervious surface as well as the stormwater or the water calculations. And I had a quick question for the applicant. I noticed that you've provided recharge volume calculations for post drainage, but I didn't see any pre-construction drainage calculations for existing conditions. And that is a requirement of our town bylaw to provide that information in the application.
Of pre-development, so pre versus post, this is, I mean, we're not, this is, I'd say what we're trying to do here is mimic the recharge calculations of the existing site, which is how we're doing this. We're not doing a pre versus post analysis. That's not required as far as rates of runoff go. We're looking at recharge, which is a bit different. I mean, a project like this, I mean, it's not subject to the typical stormwater where you're dealing with peak rates. So what we decided to do is go through the recharge exercise, which again we have the increase in impervious area, which is typically how you do recharge. So the increase in impervious inherently takes into account the existing. So we're kind of taking existing. What's the increase in impervious? And then that gives you your recharge volume. We've also effectively done, so the increase is 2257 square feet and the proposed roof is 2454. So we actually, the proposed roof is a little bit more than the increase in impervious, so we calculated that as well. The storage we're providing exceeds the recharge requirements for even the entire roof, even though the increase in impervious is only 2,257.
In the existing, did you have, no, as far as impervious, did you count the former concrete pad and the two sheds?
Yes.
Oh, you did, okay. That just, then that didn't want to shorten,
Yeah, exactly,
shorten yourself.
yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
The existing structure that's going to be demolished, does that have a cellar? And what type of floors in there? Is that all going to be?
I think with some concrete, John Thompson developed it. I think with some concrete and some natural rich black earth.
So is that all going to be removed? The concrete that's down there?
Yeah.
And that building's within the 25? Just on the edge?
It like grazes
This
it.
existing, yeah, it's, you can kind of see I graded out right in here, so it's
Mhm.
great. Just clipping there. But effectively, you're talking about just, as far as demolition goes, we're thinking of erosion control will be installed right at the edge there, and you just kind of do all your work inbound of that. Because it's all established vegetation beyond that, so.
We looked at, if I may, we looked at trying to rehabilitate that building, but it's really hard. I've got reservation approval and all of it.
Yeah, I'm familiar with
And I had
the
Mr. Trask look at it, see if it had any historical significance. He thinks it's just been moved from site to site, to get to where it is today.
Yeah, it's a tired-looking building. But my question is that, I mean, there's going to be a hole in the ground, and you're right on the edge of the 25 boundary. Are you going to fill that hole?
If I made the hole is almost ground level. I don't think it goes, so you walk around to the back of the building, you walk right into the basement. It's not deep into the ground.
But anything would be restored right to grade.
But will you have to bring fill in if there is, or are you just going to move soil around on the site?
I'd say there's will probably be an import of some material here. Just clean bill from the project or.
It might be good if a hole, if I made in the front, but in the back it's more ground level, cycle one.
Are the new structures gonna have basements or no?
I don't have a lot of room. I'm gonna try to create some kind of crawl space, something to put utilities in. I think the slab creates issues where I don't have any place to put anything. If I can put the furnaces downstairs and create some type of storage downstairs, I'd like to be able to do that. So I have to figure out exactly where the water table is too. So that's the last one calling one. is, thanks for the, we've got 6 feet of water, thanks for the 3 feet of water. Want to stay out of the table.
I mean, the proposed new buildings actually take it out of the 35 buffer zone more than the existing building. The existing is, it pretty much runs right through the middle of it. These buildings are skewed more, you know, to the east here, so I feel it's, you're actually pulling out of.
Get away from it.
Yeah.
Correct.
Could you run through the standards of for the bank piece and talk a little bit more about how your water is flowing on this property and how the additional impervious surface will or won't impact the bank or water flow or any of the standards for the bank, inland bank?
Sure. Yeah, so what we had done on this plan is we've shown with flow arrows. As you can see, there's a flow arrow key over on this side of the plan, but essentially there's basic hydrology. There's 2 types of flow. One is sheet flow, and then one is shallow concentrated flow. So what this site is doing is you can see these kind of, I would say, little squiggly arrows in here. Those are meant to signify where the runoff will be sheet flow, just kind of a shallow sheet of water, not concentrating. And then we have these other arrows, these kind of more blocky arrows that signify where it would be more of a shallow concentrated during a little bit larger storm event. So effectively, what's happening, we're maintaining the existing drainage patterns. So what's happening now is effectively the same as what we're proposing. It's just shifting water around a little bit. So this pavement here will drain toward the road. So a portion of it will come into a gentle grassed swale, where much of it will infiltrate. Smaller storms, I don't expect any runoff. Really be flowing all the way through. I think you'll have quite a bit of infiltration in this swale. But once the swale wraps around, then it hits and it levels right out. So then it would spread back out into a sheet flow condition. So that's really beneficial when we're talking about stormwater. We want to slow it down and spread it out. So that's what's happening right here. It's just going to spread back out and flow toward the bank. So it'll be that sheet flow rather than concentrated. So that helps with stability of soils. And the same thing over here is all just sheet flow, no shallow concentrated, all just sheet flow, gradual grades. They'll grade it as we've shown, which is just gentle grading, flowing through the filter strip, flowing kind of just down the contour like this, just real sheet flow, shallow. So it'll be slow. It's a stable lawn. This type of system, we don't expect any type of impacts to the bank there. It'll all be very, very much spread out instead of in one particular location of discharge.
So you have the blue dashed line, which is the edge of the bank, right? And then you have the light green shaded area, which is the lawn. And on the left side, there's a white space that's between the lawn and the blue dashed line. What is that spot?
The left side over
Yeah,
here?
so the area that's, yeah, what's right there?
So this is effectively what I did is I just stopped at the property line.
Okay.
To kind of, just to show what the shape of the property is.
Okay.
But it's lawn, but right along in this point, it's going to transition into kind of leaf litter, kind of the bank material, some stone and dirt, and kind of leaf litter. So the lawn ends roughly along the property line.
Okay.
Obviously not exactly. And of course, we are proposing, I didn't mention this, but we're proposing to put conservation markers up along. You have to see these blocks in here. So to really signify the edge of
Are these going to be owner occupied, or is this a rental property? And on the right-hand side, the perpendicular to the street, is that the property line? Right.
Owner occupied, assuming you don't screw up the sale process.
And so you're all set with zoning, with setbacks?
Yeah.
Are there any other questions?
I think I'm a little, so I understand not wanting to lose lawn, and you're proposing to do the conservation mix at the top of, well, the top of the plan, that little triangle area. And I think, asking for you guys to, put down the seed mix in the entire 25-foot setback really cuts the lawn. But do you think there's any negotiation for like a 3-foot buffer along the left edge of the property between, so it would just be lawn to that area, but then you're not mowing so close to the bank? Do you think?
Would it make any sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Jump in? Still not talking. Does it make any sense to pull this back and have the 3-foot perimeter run along here? In other words, I'm just thinking if I'm living here myself, to have as much yard as possible for any one of us who are living here, it's supposed to not be squished up against the back. It's a very tight lot to begin with.
Sure.
Just a thought. Share with you.
I think,
Because right now it's all, sorry to interrupt you, you see now it's all black and red term junk everywhere around, and it's not very attractive. I think even if we did the 3-foot perimeter around it, it would look much better. It'd still give a nice yard, get rid of the shed and the concrete bunkers, not bunkers, slabs that are there now. Right?
Is everyone familiar with the property?
I haven't
Have you seen
been
it, Chelsea?
by.
Or-
I don't think I've
I've not
visited.
seen it, no.
No.
Do we want to go visit? I mean, I went by there last weekend and just stood in the parking lot next door and took a good look, but, I mean, if we want to go look at it, I think it might be
Yeah,
worthwhile.
can I see photos?
Yeah, we have, yeah, sure, we have the kind of existing. Does that show the?
It doesn't show the,
It might show the stream, but the stream is, the main stream is off.
this is the pictures I took for the preservation. Showing what the building looks like. Charlie does not show all the, that's the same picture by the way. Does not show all the trash in the back corner, which I was speaking of. And if you were curious, this is what we proposed, this is the building around the corner. This is what I propose to redo if we get approval.
Is that similar to what's behind the,
It'd be the identical floor plan as this.
with up the street on Pine Street?
Yeah. Just see. Just, what we're proposing to do.
I like their canoes. There's probably 4 or 5 canoes in that yard.
I can be gondola service back up and running. Do you have any pictures showing all the material in the back?
I don't have my cell phone down here.
I mean, there might be a way to reconfigure kind of what we're going to be called the restoration area. If we ran it all the way across where the stone wall is and then turned down on the edge, we perhaps, obviously not right off the top of our heads, but that could end up possibly being more square feet because it's over even if it's only 3 feet wide, it's over a greater area.
We actually did look at that, so if you wrapped it, I mean, I guess if you, let's say we came up to, again, to kind of where you're looking at this 25, or even, I mean, you just come right to this, right to the corner there. We've got, we had looked at, let's see, it's 34 feet, 119 and 73. So you could do, we're proposing 1,000 square feet in that triangle. But if we were to perhaps take a similar area, but spread it along that to create that buffer, that might be, I guess, a little bit more protective of what you're thinking. So we could look at it, so that, just quickly, we do it here.
Just a quick question while you're calculating.
Yep.
Is that fieldstone wall, is that existing, or is that something you're proposing? It's existing.
I have one of those suggestions. If I was, I mean, if, whatever the square footage works out to be, if it came along this side, if you need to get any more, whatever, I'd almost rather have this section over on the side where it's not directly with Vegetated, if they have a barbecue or something like that. Just a thought. If that doesn't negatively affect.
Yeah, one of the suggestions that I have for this particular site, now that I've been to the site, what's interesting about the lawn space closer to the two trees is that it's really kind of a mix of lawn and moss. More moss than
The
lawn.
canopy, you mean?
Yeah, more moss than lawn. So I actually would suggest considering installing, and for the commission to consider, instead of doing loam and seed mix, to actually, if you're doing a smaller buffer strip, to actually install some shrubs, native shrubs, to fit with the bank standards, to improve the capacity of the bank to provide breeding habitat, escape cover, and food, in particular, and for wildlife habitat functions. I think you'll get more habitat and have what you want as well, to have more yard space.
Yes, for the people who are gonna live
Yeah.
Great big
And to
habitat over on the
provide
side.
some really significant habitat, even though it's not just in that corner of the property anymore, but really along that stream bank, to provide that native shrub canopy over that,
I think that
what
buffer
we're
is
calling a
better
stream.
to go to the commercial side of the
Yeah.
parking lot, to provide more privacy.
Yep,
for both
yeah.
parties.
Yeah.
And the-
So something like witch hazel, or something that has that, native shrubs in particular.
Something that grows in the shade too,
Yep,
because that's a big problem.
yep,
So oftentimes we get plants from the planning board, and you have to plant these
yeah.
20 trees and they're under a canopy and they never grow, or they die in a couple of years.
So I would suggest actually bringing that information back to the commission, for the commission to review and consider.
I think that'd be more practical to reinforce the bank, even if it means getting less like actual square footage, which I don't think it would anyway.
I like that idea.
Yeah.
Some shade tolerant shrubs, but in a buffer,
Hmm.
in a strip buffer is kind of what you're thinking.
Yeah.
Three
Is that
foot,
what you're
I think
thinking, Vanessa?
Yeah, that's kind of what I was.
3 feet would be enough, I think, to,
Yeah.
that's enough to at least, obviously, if you're around these trees, you'll just, we don't want to disturb the trees, which is part of it, but you
Sure.
can just make sure you're not hitting the roots, if you're planting some of these shrubs really close.
Oh, and if you do go with this idea, I would move the conservation post medallions.
To the front of it.
Yeah, yeah.
That's fine.
So we'll do a 3-foot strip along that, essentially along this, I mean,
Like
3
feet
feet
along
along
it,
it.
or like it,
I think I do too.
Kind of like spreads it out a little bit, and it's protecting more of the linear length of it, rather than
Yeah.
just having it all concentrated in one area.
Yeah, like the bank itself, the length of it.
Does the commission need to see a plan, a landscaping plan or something like that for that area?
I would think so.
I think that would be helpful, and
Yeah,
have the revise where the conservation posts are gonna be as well.
Hmm.
Just to be clear, are we talking about the shrubs on the left side of the property, what would be in the, would be more grass in the back? 3 feet of wildflowers there, or would somebody get clarified?
Say that one more time.
You're thinking, are we talking about the 3 foot here, grass, and then in this area, the shrubs, is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, shrubs would probably go better with the trees than wildflowers would.
I think and we have to, it makes the most sense to put in each particular area what's gonna grow best. So like, obviously back by those trees, it's gonna be very shady. If it's more open towards the front, then you,
Pine would grow there.
Yep. yeah.
But 3 feet around the whole perimeter.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that adds to
You
the
want to come back with the wrong thing.
curb appeal there too, but instead of looking at the parking lot next door.
Right, it enhances the market building and accomplishes what you want to.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the native planting strip, we can come back to that. If you'd like to see it.
Okay, so we're looking to continue this. And I've never really decided if we want to get out and see it. I mean, if we don't go for a site visit, it's right in the middle of town, so you can always drive by and just take a peek.
Yeah, I don't know if we have to have an actual site visit, but I'll make sure I swing by.
You can see everything from the road pretty much.
Right, yeah.
I can't wait to use the blue, but you better.
Actually, what I did, I was out on my bike and I pulled into the parking lot next door and just stood there for 5 minutes and looked at it.
I have a question about parking. Just because it's, just looking at these plans quickly, it's a little difficult to tell. So it looks like each one's gonna have a one-car garage, right? And then, is there gonna be a spot in front of that garage to park in as well? Because based on this, it looks like there is, right? Like, I know this is like another property, but it looks like you've got one in the garage and one in front, right?
So the issue with that, and we've done that many times where we have to, the problem is the couple moves in and somebody's always gonna move their car because somebody's always leaving at the wrong time. So this lends itself much better, so the second car cannot be blocking the garage. Prefer. Well, logistics, it just works out much better. They don't have to park in front of the garage.
Right.
So is there a spot not provided there then?
Right.
Okay. Okay.
Right, yeah.
So it's a total of 6 parking spaces, is that what I heard?
Correct. Yep. 2 in the garage and 4 outside.
On okay.
3 to the left,
Yeah.
1 over to the
And
right.
then one is kind of just pull, you can pull right in here.
My own driveway is like that, that's a big one.
Yeah, and there's not even really a space to, if you had a car parked here, you wouldn't, I mean, the maneuvering, you'd be blocking the entrance, unless you push
Okay.
it back, so it kind of lends itself to this setup.
That's probably not in our jurisdiction, but you're going to use the same curb cut that's there now? If there isn't even, is there even a
Effectively-
curb on the side of the street?
Same location, we're just widening it a little bit on this side, so you can kind of, I don't know if you can see it from back there, but it traces the existing one, and it's kind of gray, that's the existing driveway, so we're adding 4 feet heading off the side there.
What about this telephone pole? Is that going to impact the driveway?
No, it won't. It's actually, on that edge is where right where the existing driveway, we're following the existing driveway right in this.
Do you have any other questions? Or you want to make a motion to continue?
Do we have any public comment?
Is there any, I always forget. How quickly would you be ready with your revised landscaping?
Yeah.
Right now.
So if we reschedule for 2 weeks from tonight?
Yep, absolutely. Yep.
Back and button off.
Maybe tomorrow morning, right?
Yeah. No, we could have it back into Darren, and we could work with her on making sure that it was there in time and what you need.
Okay.
Definitely.
And remind me one more time that I'm looking for conservation seed mix on the top part and shrubs on the side, is that correct? Conservation
Yeah.
seed mix on the top, spread out in a 3-foot buffer area, and then shrubs on the other side?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Are we doing 3-foot buffer the length of the stream or just on the side?
I'd like to see it all along, basically following the blue dashed contour the whole way around.
Which is the stream, right?
Yeah, I think that's the edge of the bank, but
Yeah.
same difference, really.
Same idea, just it's going to be
Yeah.
that,
Yeah, I'd like to see it kind of across and then down,
Okay.
like kind of like that L shape.
okay, we all set on this one for tonight then?
I think so.
Yes.
Make a motion to continue.
Right, so if someone wants to make a motion, we continue to, when's our next meeting? April,
11th, I want to say. Sorry, I don't have my phone to.
Wait.
Oh, sorry. I know this. I have it written down.
11.
11th.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to continue, the hearing for 56 Adams Street, DEP file number 14-1322, to our next meeting on April 11th.
Motion's
Second.
been made. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Great, thanks. Thanks for
Good.
Make it work.
Okay, so next is old business, which is 12 Scarlet Lane, DEP file number 14-1319. Doesn't look like there's anyone here, the applicant? Oh, I'm sorry.
Welcome back.
Was that in our last meeting or the previous meeting?
Okay, thank you again. My name is Mike Maham with the Warren Cameron Group. So this project here is 12 Scarlet Lane. It was previously approved, order of conditions granted for a proposed addition at 12 Scarlet Lane. So this plan here is actually the revised plan. Effectively, what's happened now is, since we've done the permit, they've worked with the architect, really moved forward into full 100% design. They realized they needed to change some things, and so that's why we're here. Basically, what we've done is, I'll flip this. So you can see the existing addition in the same location. The farmer's porch was over here, an addition here, walkway. So this one, the addition in the same location, just kind of the shape of it changed. Instead of the farmer's porch being over here, it's along this wall. And basically this actually has decreased the impervious area, and it's actually brought the proposed structure further away from the wetland. So of course those are all good things in terms of the interest that you're looking after. But the procedure is we wanted to come and bring it before you and just ask for a minor modification to that order of conditions to essentially replace the plan that's on file with this plan. And that's effectively it. I have to answer any questions.
I have a question for Aaron. What is the criteria? Do we need to order another order of conditions, or can we just accept
Yeah.
the modification to the one that we've already approved?
You can accept a modification to the existing order of conditions to accept this amended plan. And then I will also amend the existing order of conditions to incorporate this plan instead of the previous plan that the commission has approved. Does that make sense?
Yeah, exactly.
Does that
Sure.
make sense?
That's easy.
Yep. So if the commission finds that what's proposed is not more impactful than what was previously approved, then we can move forward with amending the existing order of conditions to incorporate this plan.
Okay. That sounds like it's less impact.
Yeah.
Okay?
Okay, so how do we put that into a motion? We're just saying we're going to modify the previously approved order of conditions?
To incorporate this plan dated with the modified garage, footprint, porch, and walkway with this state. But I can't do it. Sorry.
Yeah.
Well,
So
Can you handle that?
I will
Rich?
try to
Is
help.
that- Can you
Yeah,
put
I'll
that
help
into, put that into words?
Yeah. Make a motion, you made a motion? Or, so you made a motion? So, I make a motion to amend the existing order conditions for 12 Scarlet Lane DEP 141319 and accept the amended plan and dated 3/22/2019, and we'll make amends to the existing order.
Perfect. I think
Okay, the
that
motion's been made. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great.
Good. You're 2 for 2 tonight. Erin, could you explain what this grant support letter request is, please?
So, a while back, we had Sam Cleaves from MAPC come and talk to us about his drafting of the Natural Hazard Mitigation Plan, which was submitted to FEMA and is currently going through the review process and approval process. In addition to that plan, kind of an offshoot of that, the state has a municipal vulnerability preparedness grant opportunity, and that is, among many other things, an opportunity for funding to create a vulnerability assessment related to climate change and also create an action-oriented resiliency plan. And so the town is preparing a grant application to get funding to be able to prepare this climate and action plan for the town. And so this, the person who's writing the grant requested a letter from the Conservation Commission in support of the town's application for this grant funding for this climate action plan. So that's what that is, and I'd be happy to read this into the letter too for the public and also for the commission to review as well. So it says the Danvers Conservation Commission is writing to offer strong support for the town's application to the Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Grant Program to fund a vulnerability assessment and develop an action-oriented resiliency plan that aligns with the town's existing natural hazard mitigation plan. This vulnerability assessment and resiliency plan, action plan will help the town prioritize key infrastructure updates and policy improvements to make important strides toward creating a more climate resilient town. And the Conservation Commission actively protects the interests of our rivers, banks, wetlands, and other resource areas that naturally prevent flooding, filter pollution, and provide crucial habitat for wildlife. Through its regulatory review, the Conservation Commission works with residents to assure that these natural areas are conserved. And then the Conservation Commission looks forward to the possibility of assisting with the development of the Vulnerability Assessment Resiliency Plan, which, if we're successful with this grant, I anticipate that a representative from the commission will participate in any roundtable discussions that are happening on the back end as part of this grant, and then also as part of the drafting of the plan, as well as the whole commission. We're not really sure what the setup will be for participation in that. So, if you would like to support the town in the grant application, this is what this letter is.
My only question is I'm all for it. I think it's great, but I technically work for EEA, so I don't know if I'm supposed to sign it or not.
No.
If it's if it
That's
becomes
fine.
a gray area that I should
That's
not
fine.
insert myself into.
Yep. Okay. So because I have your name drafted on the letter and didn't think about that, I will revise this letter and just have a representative sign. I can either have Peter sign or Mike sign, but I'd actually prefer that Peter sign on behalf of the commission since he's here and
Okay.
we've discussed this.
So will you
I will
retype this?
retype this and send it off to you.
Okay,
Cool, great. Yeah,
You guys are all
okay.
Good.
no, definitely.
good. Okay.
Minutes from our February 14th meeting, did everybody get a chance to review those today?
Yep.
I'll entertain a motion and we accept the minutes from our February 14th. And they look pretty accurate to me, so.
Good.
I'll make a motion to accept the meeting minutes from February 14th, 2019.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. One other thing that I have before we adjourn. The development up on Locust Street, I don't know the number, but it's the 7 houses that the DiBiase
Yep.
outfit has built. I think one of those houses is occupied. So my understanding was to pass papers that they would need a certificate of compliance. Is
Yes.
that true?
It depends on which lot, but if they do have a certificate of, order of conditions, they do need a certificate of compliance. to
Right,
pass
there was an
waivers.
order of conditions for each individual lot.
Okay,
Wrote down when I was up there, the same day I was out on my bike this weekend. It looked like there were a couple cars in the driveway, so I'm presuming that it's occupied. But they haven't come in front of us for a certificate of compliance.
okay, I can follow up.
Because one thing we had with all of those orders of conditions was there was supposed to be some, I don't know, it's an affidavit. The owner was supposed to agree to use less fertilizer because the implication was the fertilizer gets into the wetlands.
Yeah,
And the developers agreed to that.
okay,
So I don't see where the new owners have agreed to that, or, you know, at least seen it.
okay. I will
And,
follow up.
but I think, you know, more importantly, there's no certificate of compliance.
Okay,
So if we could just check on that, and then
I will do
Yeah.
that. It's just up there too. Okay, I will check it. Thanks.
okay, that being said, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn our meeting.
I'll make a motion to adjourn today's meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, good enough. Good job, everybody.